Hello and welcome everybody to another Rising Tide Talk. I'm Matt, Roleplay Chat Capelli, and today we will be talking about building your crowdfunding audience, among other TTRPG things. Today we are joined by, I would say, the best and biggest father and son TTRPG content creators out there. Definitely a content creation powerhouse. They are podcasters, game designers, writers, actual play performers, and the minds behind the hugely successful Sky Zephyrs and the Wandering Tavern TTRPG supplements. Please join me in welcoming Tom and Bodhi, aka Homie and the Dude, to Rising Tide. Hey guys, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
What an intro, man.
God, yeah. I mean, that made us sound way better than we are. Oh my God, that was
Not at all, not at all. You deserve. The crowd goes wild. Everybody in the chat, let's go blow up the chat. Get ready,
dude. I want to clip that. I want to clip that and use that as intros for our podcast. Perfect.
I actually want it to be like, you know how you have an alarm on your phone? I want it to wake me up in the morning. That's. I think that would be it for me.
Yeah, take that clip and use it as your alarm. I'm about that.
Perfect.
Thank you for having us.
Start the day off on a good foot, right?
For sure.
So yeah, we're here to chat, and you know what? It was a blessing when Jess told me that it was going to be you two on the next Rising Tide. It was a complete surprise to me, and I always love hanging out, talking to you guys about games. So I'm glad you're here. Glad to hear your insights, especially as we talk about crowdfunding and building a crowdfunding audience. I think that that's something that you guys have slowly kind of been mastering with your projects. So I have kind of three pillars of questions for you today. First pillar is going to be things to do kind of before you launch your Kickstarter or crowdfunding project. Two would be things to do while your project is live. And then the third category is kind of a catch-all for just other overall advice for kind of building that long-term audience. Now, of course, like in all the RT talks, the live audience here is welcome to also encourage us with some questions or pose their own questions. So what I'm going to try to do is leave us, 10, 15 minutes at the end to cover any questions that come up there. So if people listening that are here today live on the Discord server have questions, Jess is going to post where to do that in the chat. There's like a thread that you can go find, the RT Talks discussions thread for today's episode, and I'll go scour that for your questions kind of near the end of today's discussion.
Nice.
All right, enough of me talking. Let's pass the microphone over to Tom and Bodhi. I'd love to hear, in your experience, the kinds of things that you like to do before launching your projects that helps kind of start establishing that audience from the beginning, before it even launches.
Yeah.
So what kind of things do you personally like to do before launching a project?
So I loved your terminology, Matt, when you said slowly mastering this space, because it has been an iterative process of us understanding how the heck to do this. So this is our third Kickstarter that we're kind of getting in place right now. And the first one, at that time, we were still very invested in traditional social media. So we were very active on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and we still have those, those handles and those channels, and occasionally we'll use those, but we started understanding through that process.
Preface: the Twitter was before Elon Musk bought it.
Yes.
just a preface.
So let's put a timestamp on this. This is going back to our first Kickstarter. The ramp up to it, which is what we're talking about, was in 2023. So let's say end of 2022, beginning of 2023. And what we started finding out was, although old school Twitter, you'll remember, Matt, because you were there with us, that was a really lovely community of creators supporting each other.
It was. Yeah.
It's really cool. You had, Work in Progress Wednesdays and, all this shouting out each other as much as we could. Well, what we started finding out was, although that was really supportive and positive, as far as conversion to a Kickstarter, we weren't seeing it. And so around that time, we started saying, okay, we need to find a way to create our own audience, not just people that, kind of tangentially support us as other creators, but people that like us, like what we're creating, and want to be kind of part of our story, that want to be involved with us. And so our main decision at that time, I would say, is we said, let's de-emphasize the traditional social media platforms and overemphasize things like Discord and our newsletter. And that's what we just started bringing in, literally one person at a time, wherever we could, to our Discord, and started building what we call our La Familia community. And so that's kind of how it started. And that's what we continue to do. Now there's other aspects of it that we can certainly talk about, but that was kind of the original thought.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also at that time, again, it was a very different space. And like many others, and everyone is like the majority of the community is still doing this today. And it's something that we've shifted recently, and we'll talk about probably later, I imagine. But we were also looking at things like, Facebook advertising and YouTube advertising and Google advertising, because that was something that we were advised to do. Something that we were also advised to do at that time was look into people like BackerKit, who are people who can, almost run ads for you and do things like that to kind of help get the word out there about what you're doing. Now, the secret in all of that, the reason we were trying to do this all pre-launch, like people might be sat like, why are you trying to do that before the Kickstarter goes live? Don't you want people to be able to actually go there when it's, at least path of least resistance to, signing up to support? Well, the answer is you need pre-launch followers. Pre-launch followers is a big conversion number when it comes to Kickstarters and crowdfunding platforms that is really, really important to keep in mind when you're building this. So the objective is to go into a Kickstarter with as many pre-launch followers as feasibly possible, simply because the moment you do launch, an email is sent to every single one of those people from Kickstarter being like, hey, you said you wanted to check this out. What's up? Go over and check it out. And so, that's what we were aiming to build by doing that. Yeah. Like Tom said, pulling people to our newsletter and our Discord, which was building what we're calling, like La Familia, our group of people that like what we do. And then we were doing those ads to try and just branch out and just almost put the name further in the sphere, basically, at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you're onto something there, because like you were saying, while those follower counts and numbers on social media platforms help with reach, doesn't always translate to a purchase or a backing on a Kickstarter. So I think you're definitely focusing in on a smaller kernel of people who are going to purchase or support a project as a really wise thing to do.
I remember a real moment where it all kind of came clear to us, because we had been wrestling with how much time do we spend, because there's a cost analysis on being active on those platforms, right? You have to create content, you have to post, you have to schedule posts, you have to answer, you have to comment, all this stuff, and being active, supporting other people. We had Mike Shea, Sly Flourish, on our podcast, and at the time he had
Absolute legend.
Yeah, so he's an old school, very supportive, lazy DM content creator. That's his main content, and he is legendary in our kind of community. And he was on our podcast, and we were just talking about kind of this theme. And he said, guys, literally as of this week, I have completely stepped away from Twitter. And at that time, he had 60,000+ followers on Twitter, and we were like, what? Because we had a couple thousand, but he was the aspiration. Let's grow, and then we can pull all those people in to things like Kickstarter. And he said, it's not, that's broken. It's completely broken. He said, I don't have any conversion from Twitter. So I don't know what his numbers are right now, but he literally stepped away that week, which is like about 2 years ago, and said, I'm investing in my newsletter. And he said, my YouTube channel is a place where, like we do with our Discord, he really invests time in cultivating a community in his YouTube channel. And that was a really aha moment for us to be like, okay, the rules are not kind of like you would see in a marketing, undergrad program. The rules are a little bit different with this. So our education started then, and and it continues basically.
I would say as well, the other thing that, obviously we're talking a lot about conversion and things like that. What we learned in that first Kickstarter as well is that actually the conversion in some ways didn't matter as much as we realized. And what mattered more was the number of people that came and said yes, irregardless of whatever that converted to, whatever the sum of money was. None of that matters compared to the number of people that came and said yes. And so that was a big lesson for us as well, was in that, in that first space going, cool, it's actually about ensuring that we have a lot of people that want to say yes, because they will likely say yes for other things that we do in the future. If they liked what we did the first time, it's, you know, one of those snowball effects, you know, and you hope that those same people show up again, you know, and will keep coming back to the well if they like the water. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
I think the only other thing I'd add, Matt, and then I'll hand it back to you, is there is data on pre-launch followers.
Yeah.
So the data is you can more or less multiply about 10%. Let's say it's between 5 and 15%
Into back.
of pre-launch followers will convert into backers within the first 48 hours.
Yeah.
Now, why is that important?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, just at round numbers, you have, I don't know, let's say you have 1,000 pre-launch followers. So day one of the Kickstarter, if the numbers are consistent with what, you know, what's been out there as far as the formula, you're going to convert about 100 of those in the first 48 hours. Why is that important? Well, Kickstarter behind the scenes has their own algorithm. And for them, if they can see that there's a big, almost like right out of the gates shot by a campaign, they put you in a different place in their algorithm. So they'll put you in a, you know, almost like these are hot campaigns that have just started, or they'll put you further up in their feed. So if someone types in TTRPG, your Kickstarter is a little bit further up in the feed. So that also, you know, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling positive feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
So that's another reason to really invest in pre-launch.
That's really smart. And, you know, finding a way to make the algorithm of these platforms work to your advantage, to have them showcase your product, I think, is a really wise thing to do. You talked a little bit about kind of building those numbers through your La Familia community and kind of these like grassroots face-to-face conversations, or, you know, investing that energy with folks to build up that community. I'd love to know, as far as advice that you might have to people listening on how to get started. You know, if somebody here is listening and they say, yeah, I've got a cool idea to make a Kickstarter or some kind of crowdfunding project, but I don't know the first place to go to kind of start building those relationships, to start connect with, whether that be influencers or community leaders or even just individuals in the space that you know, they want to kind of connect to and have that person join in on their community, consider them to be part of that like inner circle, for instance. What kind of advice would you give to people in that kind of space who don't yet have a hub to bring people into, and how to do that outreach and how to get people kind of invested into that inner circle, let's call it?
Okay, so I'll throw a couple things. If you are in, I'll throw like 3 scenarios of what I would consider good starting advice. So the first one is, if you are someone who is just starting out, you don't have, you know, anything written, published, or anything ready to kind of go, you're coming into it with an idea and you're like, I want to breach into the TTRPG space. The first answer to that question is you need to get a YouTube following. If Tom and I were to go back and do it differently, we know a little thing now about, you know, all you have to do is look at people like D&D Shorts. He absolutely, you know, incredible content creator, has made fantastic YouTube career, and then using that has then gone on, and when it was launched on Kickstarter, his Ryoku's Guide to the Yokai Realm was the biggest TTRPG Kickstarter ever at the time. It blew up. He made, I think it was 4 million or something ridiculous. He had like couple, like I want to say tens of thousands of backers, you know, just insane numbers across the board. And that comes from a deep investment in creating a community, similar to like how Sly Fuller said about his YouTube and his newsletter, you know, building this community that loves what you do already. So when you do something, they go and activate for you.
Yeah.
That's my first piece of advice. If you're all the way at the start with YouTube, build a community, then discover what the product is, build something that your community is going to love, have them work on it with you, have it be an interactive thing that they will love to build and then see get to its apex, and then launch that motherfucker.
I'll give you 3 more examples. Bob the World Builder did Delve, which is hugely successful. Kelsey Dion did Shadow Dark, which now has blown up twice.
You can also go
DC20.
DC20,
So
as well, has just blown up.
That's more.
Koval is another one.
Matt Colville is another.
I mean, Critical Role with Candela and Daggerheart are another example of people who are doing this actively. Now we're talking about titans. Obviously, we're talking about Goliaths right now. So obviously it's going to take time to get to a stage where that's going to be feasible, but that's where I would actually invest first.
Yeah.
Then the other two scenarios are cool. Let's pretend that you haven't made a YouTube channel, but you've got the publishing, you've got an idea, you've got a concept, and you're not wanting to do the YouTube channel, and you're wanting to just go with like writing, designing TTRPGs, that kind of thing. My piece of advice there would be you need to find yourself a team. And that team needs to be a group of people who unequivocally give a shit about what you're making and the passion behind the project, the dream that is coming with this project, and the timeline ahead of that project. Because this project, everyone thinks as well, I'm going to do a Kickstarter, it's going to blow up, it's going to be like this legendary thing. I promise you, your first one, unless you are D&D Shorts coming with, an audience of, X 100,000 subscribers or, X million subscribers, it's not going to be insane. Your first one is not going to blow itself out the water unless something magical freaking happens, unless you really invest in, paid ads or things like that. You could make it happen, but realistically, if you go traditional route, it's just not going to be as crazy. So you need a group of people around you that just care about what you're making. That needs, you need an artist. If you're going to be making TTRPG stuff, art is a big part of 90% of the content that people release. You need to have someone who can publish the books, make physical copies, and distribute them across the world to people who want to come and get your book. You need to have someone who's going to do the layout of the book and understands programs like InDesign and things like that to be able to wield that tool. You're going to need probably someone who has basic knowledge of video creation and editing information. And then realistically, probably somewhere after that, you're going to need a writing team to pull this whole thing together, basically. But those are like the key players. So like, the layout guy will help you with layout for the Kickstarter page and the book. The artist will help you create art for the book and the Kickstarter page. The writing team will write the book and the Kickstarter page. The editor or like filmographer will make your hero video and any ads leading up to it as well. Possibly any content that you might want to put in the book as well, anything like that.
Yeah.
So there's lots in there that you need to just compile your fucking Avengers. Like you need to compile like a group of like badasses that are willing to fight for you.
And I'll throw in a quick plug here for this community here. So if you're here listening to us talking, odds are you're already somewhat familiar of what happens here in the Rising Tide Discord. But there is such a wide range of talent here. So if, like Bodhi is saying, you want to kind of assemble a gang of people to work together, you kind of have to go out on a limb and take that risk of pitching that in the collaborations text chat or meet with people, get to kind of understand what they can offer and come together to make your project happen. Because I agree with you 100%, guys. Having a diversity of talents to push forward a project is definitely valuable. And I'll also add that being organized needs to be thrown in there too. What you're saying, I think, is fantastic, but it's not going to happen if you don't kind of manage your time and manage kind of the, the checklist of to-dos with the people that you're kind of corralling to make the project happen. So yeah, 100%. And Tom, looks like you wanted to add something.
I was just going to say, timeline is your choice on how you want to develop this. So if you're like, oh my God, that sounds overwhelming to me. I've got to get an artist. I've got a layout artist. I've got to get, someone to do videos. Like, how am I going to do that? You're right. That's a lot. But if you break it down and you find, like Bodhi said, you find people that are just as passionate as you. And by the way, financially, when we started, we had a very, very limited budget. And we still do.
Yeah,
we're still watching our nickels the whole time.
Yeah, we rock Kickstarter to Kickstarter and flow in between, and it's a dog eat dog world in the supplement creation space, I guess would be how to put it. It's not an easy place to make a quick buck. It's not there's no quick anything here. Is an important thing. So that's what you were saying.
Yeah. So with regard to timeline, and you're looking at this mountain of things, it could be a 12-month horizon. It could be a whatever month horizon that you want to put on it. If you say to yourself, look, my internal goal is I want to have 500 pre-launch followers before I go live. Guess what? You can do that. It might take longer than you might think it will, or it might not. But you can hit the button on I want to go live whenever you want. So you can put all those pieces in place, and some might be slower to put in place and some might be a little bit faster or whatever. And at some point you might be like, oh my God, we still have, lots to do. That's fine. And if you kind of adjust your expectations of like, I want to go live this date. I want to go live this date. Because I was kind of like that on our team. We need to go live this date. This is kind of like when is the ideal time to do that. And it just builds in a lot of pressure. And at some point, if you're not ready, it's going to show. Like whatever you've put into it is pretty much exactly what you're going to get out of it. So as you invest more, as you put more layers of foundation into your preparation for the Kickstarter, those will show returns. But if you feel like, I've built a straw house instead of a brick house, that's the outcome you're gonna get.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So before we go on to things to do when it goes live, I have one last question, and maybe this is more of a less advice and more just in your experience and the things that you've kind of lived through. I'd love to know what the most unexpectedly helpful thing you've done ahead of a Kickstarter launch.
That's a great question.
I've got one. So, okay, and this is behind the scenes right now. So what you're not expecting is you've built up your pre-launch audience, right? And you've got a strategy during the campaign. What sometimes happens is there's other people that are just finding your Kickstarter. If you've put enough stuff in place, you're like, okay, for whatever my budget is to advertise and whatever, we can talk about advertising because our advertising strategy has completely changed. We do not advertise now with Facebook. We do not advertise with Google. So we're not on Instagram. You're not going to see a Homie and the Dude ad on Instagram, on your Facebook feed, or on YouTube. There's real moral reasons that we're doing that. It may be a bigger challenge for us to walk away from that, but we're prepared to do that at this point because we just feel like we want to invest all of our money into the creator community of the TTRPG space. But whatever you've put in place, when that Kickstarter goes live, you're going to see a percentage of backers that are coming through that you're like, oh, okay, well, that's a little bit more than I thought. So, like these super backers, there's people on Kickstarter that are just kind of churning through Kickstarter content, and they're used to like their jam is backing Kickstarters. So you're going to get a percentage of that if you've done your homework. And that's why we primarily only use the Kickstarter crowdfunding platform versus some other platforms that just don't have as big a database as Kickstarter does. Some other people have been really, really successful on BackerKit, but I believe they've brought a huge audience with them, and they haven't been able to, like, there's not enough of a groundswell of database on BackerKit or on GameFound, or this is my personal opinion, that you're going to get like surprise mana that falls from heaven that you're like,
That's
wow.
a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Great way to put it.
So that was a surprise for us.
The Kickstarter algorithm helping us out because of their database was, a thing. I was going to say, this is the thing as well. Kickstarters, we run hours for anywhere between 30 to 40 days. Dude, there's nothing more stressful than those 30 or 40 days.
It's just a nightmare.
It's the worst 30, 40 days of your life because your anxiety is really high. You're like trying to do everything you can during those days to just like keep working and keep grinding on the shit you're meant to be doing and not focusing on that. And I think the biggest surprise was, talking about that team that you need to build was in the moments when people were like having moments, like I know Emily, my co-writer, was messaging me at like 11 o'clock at night one night. She was like, oh, we haven't got, a backer today. Like, oh, I'm stressed, like, is this the bottom, and I was able to be like, hey, like, it's all good. We're good. It's cool. Let's breathe. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Who knows what we're going to wake up with in the morning kind of thing. And vice versa. I had days where I was dipping. Tom had days
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So dude, the surprise helpful thing was not only was the team that we chose badasses at what they did, but also that when push came to shove, when we were in the trenches, it was a support system as well. It was a family that we had around us. And obviously, Tom and I are related, and my mother, who helps us out a couple days a week as well, is also, we're all related. So there's a lot of support there already. But the rest of the team really just like came together, and it was beautiful. So, if you find the right team, hopefully you can share that anxiety as a team, and everyone can feel better about it as you go through the Kickstarter period. So that was my surprise. That was really nice.
I think that's a really human thing, right? To feel that pressure kind of build up and having people to kind of back you up, totally great to have in all contexts, I think, but especially in the pressure cooker environment of having kind of a backer kit of some sort being launched. And speaking of it being launched, I'd love now to kind of segue into the next phase of our conversation about things that you do when it is live, when your project is live and people are punching in, like, they're pledging for stuff. I'd like to know if there are things that you like to do to kind of keep your audience engaged and excited during that funding period. So while it's a live Kickstarter, what are you doing to keep them engaged, excited, into it?
Great question. I'll rattle through my list and
I'll
go through
see if
yours.
you
Yeah.
have anything else.
We'll probably have some crossover. So my list would be Kickstarter updates when important things happen, keeping like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Engaging with, here's the thing. We've had, Kickstarters that by some estimation are larger, but compared to people like, again, D&D Shorts or, MCDM, Matt Coville, or, Stormlight Archive, the Stormlight TTRPG that just came out, they're having thousands of comments like every second. So as best as you can, keeping up with the comments and answering questions and trying to like stay on top of that mill that will just be coming in, because people appreciate when they get responded to and that kind of thing. So, really activating with your comments, activating with your Kickstarter updates, then activating with things like, posting stuff on your social media of like, we've hit this, we're doing that, like just keeping those updates flowing to the community and keeping it kind of live is my first one. Number two, I would say, is to keep your community engaged. Now, this comes back to that marketing strategy that Tom was talking about a minute ago of in our first Kickstarter, we did a lot of Facebook ads, things like that. And then at the end of it, we invested in having some creators do some advertising for us, basically.
Awesome.
The creators worked 1,000 times better than the advertising that we had done through Facebook. It was much better. Their audiences loved it. We got a bunch of people who started enjoying us because these creators were recommending our content and things like that. And these creators were people that we were actually really, really good friends with already at that point. One of which is a guy called Runesmith, and he just stepped up for us big time. He shout out to him massively, because he's
And he didn't have to. We were much smaller than him, and we just reached out to him. But this is an example, Matt. I know you've had Brennan Lee Mulligan on your podcast, and you're thinking like, how, right? How? Well, you reached out to him. You took your shot, right? And if you take enough shots, then there's a chance, right? There's a chance. And so we took some shots, and people like Runesmith was like, I'm gonna give you guys a chance. And so,
and he's now been like an OG in our creator army, as we're kind of dubbing it, in our creator like gang.
Yeah.
And he supported us. We managed to pull that together. So at the end of that, we were like, oh, okay, this maybe works a little bit better. For our next Kickstarter, we invested very little in Facebook ads at all, and we invested massively in the community by doing ridiculous, basically affiliate kind of deals with people, and like offering ridiculous percentages to people in hopes that we could not only activate some big players, but also give back to the community by giving them a chance to, split whatever they brought to us. They get a huge percentage of what they would give to us, basically, back to them. So it was, a big investment for both of us. When they entered in that with us, it was us working simultaneously as opposed to working for one another or anything like that. So when we did that, though, because, various people were putting ads out, another thing that I would say to keep your community active was we were clipping those ads, giving them to our filmographer, Tallulah, who is incredible. And she was compiling these videos into compilations, showing creators talking about it and creating shorts to go out and things like that. So
awesome.
it was a way for us to just continue feeding the community stuff about, the Kickstarter, and trying to just make it so that, every day when people were waking up, when they were looking on their YouTube feed, somewhere in there, the Wandering Tavern was popping up, whether it was from us or someone else or, whatever it was. We were trying to be, everywhere as much as we could be. So I think it's that whole thing of keeping your audience engaged involves a lot of updates, keeping content fresh. And then the final one for me that I'll say is stretch goals. Keeping stretch goals, I would say your early stretch goals are your most important stretch goals. To me, that's where the weight of stretch goals lies. If you can have, and you will see in our next Kickstarter, we're going to have a good few early ones that we can hit and make sure that people are getting sick stuff from early stretch goals that are coming through. And then, as we get deeper into it, we'll start spacing them out and making them more like big milestone Kickstarters, because that's what you want. As you get deep into it, people want to be like, oh, are we going to hit that, are we going to hit that big number so that we can all get the next sick thing that's going to be coming with it, and so I would say playing your stretch goals right and knowing how to like put in good stretch goals. Also, don't put all your stretch goals at once. Something we learned in our first Kickstarter is we had all of them at once. We then in the second one have then done like, cool, here's 5. When we've come to number 4 and we're close to hitting number 5, we add 6, 7, and 8 in, and be like, cool, here's some more stretch goals for you.
Oh, I see. What's the logic behind that? Is that like to give you guys time to think of things to add on that you think your community would like, or is it to just kind of drum up hype? Like what's the reasoning behind doing that?
I think you ticked on definitely one of like, we're definitely always trying to think of new things that we can add in and give people more. Like, again, I come back to Tom and I started this because we fell in love with TTRPGs. We fell in love with Dungeons and Dragons. We fell in love with 1,000 other systems since then. And without the community and this beautiful space that we're in, we wouldn't be who we are. We wouldn't be here without any of this beautiful stuff that exists around us. The people listening right now, yourself, Matt, those early days on Twitter that were, a wasteland of fun back then, and all of it, dude, it's all everything to us. So we're constantly trying to give back. So yes, we are activating and trying to think of new stretch goals that we can give that will be fun and, interesting for people in those circumstances. And I think then the second reason is because, you don't know if we've seen Kickstarters that have come in and been like, 50K stretch goal, 100K stretch goal, 200K stretch goal, million stretch goal. And they've hit like 15,000 or something like that. And you're like,
Yeah.
That almost, once if the numbers aren't ticking through, the higher the stretch goals are, the less feasible they seem, and the more people check out of that moment. So
I see. Yeah.
having that like almost be like a slow build for people, or like an avalanche at the beginning and slowly fade up, gives people that that interest at the beginning. I think would be my list. What did you have on your list?
I have a couple things. So, Jess, I see you're in on the call. Let's just take a step back. So what we want to do is find people that are really, really interested in what we've created and ultimately want to buy it, want to give you some of their hard-earned money as a vote of,
Confidence,
gratitude, confidence, but also I want that to be able to play in my game. It looks really cool. So we're trying to find people that are, and when you look in the whole pool of TTRPG enjoyers, there's millions of people, right? But there's only a certain amount that are going to connect with your content. So how do you find them? So I mentioned Jess. Well, one thing that we do, and I know in Rising Tide, there's numerous people that have small communities, right? And so with us and like, for instance, Underground Oracle, we are trying to promote each other as much as we can.
Yeah.
So when Jess and Keith have something,
Yeah.
we're going to put it right in front of our small community. And so of our community, there's going to be a percentage of them that really dig Jess and Keith's stuff. Equally, Jess and Keith will put our stuff in front of their community. Now, what I'm going to suggest to you is every one of us here on this call and in Rising Tide know of people that have some level of a community. And at that point, if you can start, kind of connecting with people and saying, hey, like whatever you need of us, we don't have a great, a huge audience, but whatever you need of us, we will go to bat for you. We'll do everything that we can. If you want us to post on socials, if you want us to share something on our newsletter, if you want to have something in our Discord, you name it. And so you start building this, this almost like supportive relationship with people. And if you can build that network out enough, it becomes kind of powerful, right? Because it's not just your group, your audience, it's your audience and the next person's audience and the next person's audience. And now it goes from hundreds to thousands, from thousands to tens of thousands. So
I'll preface that as well. There will be some crossover between the audiences, but it's never enough for it not to be worth it, is I guess the point.
Yeah, and I think I do want to talk quickly about your Creator Army initiative. I think that's really, really, it kind of like speaks to the core of what you're saying, right? This confidence in a collection of small TTRPG communities, when they come together, really can make wonderful things. And so I know you guys have talked briefly about it already so far, but I do see it as an incredible initiative to really take that energy and give it to smaller creators to, I mean, yes, to promote your content, but to promote it because they believe in it. And to promote it because they want to see it succeed as much as you want to see it succeed. So I don't know if you had more that you wanted to talk about, kind of like where it came from, how you see it evolving for your future, you know, your upcoming Scorched Basin Kickstarter. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then in the live chat spot that I was talking about, the RT Talks discussion forum, I have a couple of questions there that I want to get to as well. So I'll throw this one to you, and then I'm going to go scour those questions and kind of prepare myself to ask you those as well before we get to the end of the show, if that's all right.
Of course. Dude. Also, shout out everyone listening to, Matt. Dude, one of the best interviewers in our space, like truly one of the goats that we actually have in this space, has been around since the like early days of the content creator stuff.
You're too kind.
You ask the best questions. Your research is some of the best in the space, dude. Like, you're a great host, guys. Like, you get this guy every week doing these. Like, give him some props. Like, what a G, dude. What a G. I would say.
Appreciate that, Bodhi.
No, dude. Honestly, Matt, you know how it is, dude. We've spoken to you a lot, dude. We love you, dude. You're a beast at what you do. You truly.
Yeah,
are.
likewise.
Thanks.
Likewise.
Man. I appreciate that. So look, cutting all the shit, absolutely everything, real talk with everyone. We are a family. Tom and I are, we're a family. Like I said, we started playing TTRPGs to have fun in our house with my close group of friends, and all of us sit around and tell stories. We fell in love with this space. You guys then gave us everything that we could ever want from, all of this. The whole thing is because of this community. So what we decided was we just can't morally justify giving that advertising budget to places like Facebook, BackerKit, YouTube, Google, any other advertising firm that exists out there, because there's many. We just couldn't justify that. It's not something that we felt was benefiting the TTRPG community. So what we've decided to do is basically create our creator army, our creator, group, basically, which is a collection of creators from, anyone who is small all the way up to big titans in the space. And it's a group of people that can come together and use each other, communicate with us, and we can all work together. But what we're offering the community in particular is we're basically offering people half of whatever they bring in for us, we give back to them. Almost exactly half. So when you're looking at our Kickstarter,
very generous, by the way. That's a very, for folks who might not be familiar with affiliate links and things, there are some places where I think I get, 2% of what I end up transitioning to them. So half or anywhere close to it is incredibly generous. So hats off, guys. That's really,
dude,
you're putting your money where your mouth is, or whatever that saying is.
And dude, that's kind of what part of this, dude. Part of this is us doing it for us, and part of this is a call to action for other people as well. So I'll talk about the call to action in a second, but the rest of that, dude, is when you see our next Kickstarter, the Scorched Basin, half of that is going back into the community. We are putting half of that straight back into ensuring that the creators that you love and are listening to out there are still able to continue creating, continue, putting themselves in the space that we're in, and can keep, justifying doing what they're doing. I'm not sure if people are aware, but big names have been dropping off. People with hundreds of thousands of subscribers have been dropping off in YouTube and being like, I can't afford to do this anymore. It's just not going to work out for me anymore. So we're losing people that we love watching weekly. I have a roster of people that I know what day they release videos, and I'm excited to see them release videos. It's a bummer when that then doesn't happen because they're not able to anymore. So that's a big part of why we've done this. The other part is, dude, we are putting our neck on the line to say, cool, if we as Homie and the Dude can do this, and we can create a book, and we can get it out there, and it all works, and everything functions as the way it's meant to, then why can't, the big publishers in our industry do the same?
Mhm.
WotC, what are you doing? Paizo, where are you at? Meichan Press, what are you doing? Kobold Press, where are you at? And these other big people, and be like, we can do this for the community. We don't have to push this through either corporations like, Facebook and, Meta and, all of that stuff, but we can actually put this into the community and keep this beautiful space that we love alive. So that's the other thing, dude, is we're out here to, stand on business a little bit and be like, it's, if we can do it and we're nobodies, we're some jabronis that live in Bristol, England, we're not California living, in the sphere people, then why can't others? And so that's a big part of why we're doing what we're doing as well.
Hear, hear. I love it. Appreciate that, Bodhi.
Thanks.
How about you, Tom?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that this model aligns us with our partners, with our creator partners. So if our creator partners know that they're going to effectively get half of whatever their audience likes of our content and is willing to back our Kickstarters, then they are incentivized to put something out there that they have their heart in as well.
Agreed.
So there's, if I'm a YouTube creator and I've got, X amount of thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and, NordVPN comes to me and says, hey man, I'll give you X amount of dollars to, to promote this. I'm going to say, yeah, sure, because X amount of dollars is nice. But where am I as far as my passion? I'm going to probably do it in a way that at least I get a pass and maybe they'll come back to me and, we can do this again. But as far as really giving my heart and soul into stuff, we found that this type of, arrangement, this type of partnership allows everyone passionate
Approach.
Creation process so that they're really putting everything they have into promoting our stuff. And so we've created the book. They've created a really, really passionate promotion for their audience. Why shouldn't we split that, right? Why should we not split that? That's kind of how we feel. It's outrageous as far as the rest of the world is concerned, but it kind of feels right for us. So that's kind of why
you couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, and what's really beautiful about what you're saying, and I'm going to get a little philosophical here, but today's RT Talks is talking about building your crowdfunding audience. But what I'm seeing in this method of revenue sharing is it's like connecting audiences. It's not just building an audience, but it's connecting an audience across multiple spaces. And that's kind of a beautiful thing when you think about it, right? Like you were saying, Bodhi, we've got these big corporations that are doing things that a lot of us don't agree with on a moral position. So why not connect our audiences so that people who we do like and people that do create awesome content and who aren't these massive corporations, why don't we band together? And I think your, creator army is really the front line of that. So really, really, really hats off. I think that's fantastic.
We look forward to being the cannon fodder at the front.
I love it. I love it. Speaking of connecting communities, why don't we go to some of the questions that were asked by the RT Rising Tide community for today's chat? So we have a question here from Fern the Hex. Fern asks, this is a bit of a personal question, but theoretically, say you have a quote unquote team of people, but you've worked a little bit more on the game. Primarily, you're doing most of everything on the project. What do you do then? And Fern, I'm not sure if you can add a little bit of clarification, but I presume that this had to do with kind of building up the Kickstarter or building up the crowdfunding project. But if you want to add a little bit more context, I'd appreciate that. But going off of the situation where it seems like one person is doing a bit more work than the others, what kind of insights or advice might you have with being able to make sure that there's kind of an equal distribution or an equitable distribution of, I suppose, like the sales or whatever?
Okay, so it's a great question. I think, there's a couple of different approaches to all of this. One of both Tom and I's jobs, I write the books and do that kind of stuff, and Tom, leads kind of the marketing and stuff, but we also then manage like a bunch of people both separately and together, basically. And so, this conversation is happening all the time. And here's what I would say. At this point in time, I don't think anyone on our team does more work than anyone else. I don't see a single person, like I don't look around our table and go, you know what,
Our core team.
yeah, our core team. Yeah, I don't see anyone at the core team who's putting in less work than anyone else, or it's all equal. Now, the other thing I would say though is, you know, we then have people who are kind of like in our on our like basically just outside of that. So we have the people who sit around this dining room table that we're currently sat at talking to you from. And then we have, you know, the people that we have that are like our consultants, I guess. So we've got like Alex, our artist, who has been with us literally since the beginning. Shout out to him, the greatest artist on the planet. Shout out to him. Chris Hopper, our layout artist, who is an absolute G, one of the best in the industry. We got Tallulah, our editor, who is, you know, an absolute badass. And we've got Arlo, who is one of our other writers as well. So, you know, those guys are all like on a consultant, like retainer, or, you know, like, or like a commission based situation. So we rock with them, basically giving them either percentages of Kickstarter, or we're looking to, you know, pay them up front for the things that we want to use. So for example, with Alex, our artist, you know, we've been paying him, he just invoices us. Like we treat it like it's like a rolling invoice. So once a month, he just invoices us for all the shit that we've gotten done basically during that time. And we just put the budget towards that basically, and so on and so forth. So a lot of our stuff is more upfront than it is, you know, like, oh, we have this huge lodge of money that's on the back end. Like, how do we divvy that up? But even still, even if you did go about it that way, I would still do it that way in terms of like getting the artist to like pay a commission, like almost commissioning the pieces from them, and you know, things like all of that.
Yeah. Kind of tally it as it goes.
Yes, exactly, dude, exactly. And ensure that, you know, they're being paid really well for the amazing work that they're doing, because, you know, Alex, our artist, is putting in hours a week, you know, creating incredible art that is not just encapsulating what I give him in the briefs I give him, but also is going above and beyond that. Same with Tallulah. Like if you watch our latest ad for the Scorched Basin, our unique terrains ad, dude, she had never done Unreal Engine work before in her life. We asked her if something was possible. She went away and learnt it, made a trailer for us. It's super badass. And that's all down to, you know, the hard work that she put in. So she should be paid, you know, fairly for that work. So, you know, that's what we give out. And that's kind of how we distribute that stuff amongst people. You know, we're looking to be able to make it a lot more regular, where we can have people on salary and things like that. We're looking to get to more traditional company kind of place, but we're working towards that. That's a goal that's of the future at the moment that we're working towards.
Mm-hmm.
I would just add, if budget is a concern, then it's about trying to be creative with, you know, if you can get people on board that can participate in your Kickstarter on the back end, but, you know, donate their money their time on the front end, then perhaps that's a way forward. But if budget is an issue, then it's about, like, you know, selling hearts as much as minds, right? Really kind of talking about your story and getting people on board. And then once we get to a place where we can all divide this up, let's divide it up fairly, right? So, you know, it's a short-term plan. If you're like, you know, some people or some entities out there would, you know, try to take advantage of creators, that's not going to work. You have to, especially if you want a long-term team. You know, we've had Alex now for nearly 5 years.
And we chat, we hang out with him 90, like our conversations when we go to work are 90% hanging out, and then 10% like, let's talk about the actual art we need to do now.
Yeah.
So it's friendships at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's really around, like, if you can build enough of, you know, like you were saying, Matt, if you can build enough of a community, enough of a creator army, then, you know, at this point, we're not going to get so wildly rich that we can retire on an island, but we're heading toward all of us getting a justification for the amount of work and passion we're putting into this. And that's really what it's about, right?
Yeah.
If you can do something that you're really passionate about, man, you're winning in life.
Totally.
Right? And get paid for it, you're winning in life.
Damn right. Damn right.
Totally. All right, we got one other question from the community, and then we'll kind of bring it to the conclusions here. We got a question here from Michael's Mind Online, and Michael asks a pretty interesting question about kind of like workflow. How do you balance putting content out there for building your audience while also working on new products? Do you overlap these two things? Is there a part of that content that you're kind of working on before you put it out there? So kind of, could you talk a little bit about that balance between building new content while also engaging your audience and building that audience, and kind of the overlap that might exist between those two things?
Okay. So I'll share a secret in a minute that we have, that is a good one for people to keep in their back pocket. But I would say a big part of this is, yes, you need to be working on the product. You need to be working on it the whole time. What you put out the community needs to be enough to excite, but not enough to go, well, oh, I've got everything. So like if you're going to put sample pages out to people, for example, don't give them the meat of your book. Give them a taste, just a tiny little taste. You don't want them to have, the chunk of the stuff that you're giving. So say, for example, the supplement is, I don't know, a bunch of subclasses and a couple of adventures. You might want to show like a portion of one of the subclasses and, a page or two of one of the adventures.
That includes some artwork or something.
Exactly, that are fully laid out, really nicely done, like good stuff, like all that kind of stuff would be a good starting place with all of that. So I would say, yes, you're definitely overlapping. Like a great place to look if anyone wants to join, but if you don't want to, that's fine. We have a Discord server, and in there we have our stuff for our Scorched Basin Kickstarter, which is coming up. And in there we have a channel where once a week we drop what we call like an art and lore drop. So we will basically put in some artwork from the book, whether it's like sketches that are being done, stuff that's like, really cool pieces, stuff that we haven't talked about before. And then we will take small sections of lore from the book. Usually then Ben, who is the person who posts them, pads those sections of lore out with some extra stuff that is vague and general about that, like, whether it's a faction or, a terrain or a creature or, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then we give that to the community. Now, dude, we're straight up putting, art from the book on this community. So people could just be like, oh, I'm just going to grab the art and go, kind of thing if they wanted to. But also the idea is that, people see what cool stuff there's going to be and hopefully are excited to see what else we could possibly bring to the table because of the cool stuff that we've already shown. So, and actually a secret, the secret that I was going to say is the pieces that you want to create first. So the stuff that you want to create first in terms of your creation process, in terms of like writing, art, video, things like that, are stuff that you actually want to overlap heavily, that you can use between all three. So you want to be able to, you'll see a lot of the stuff in that Discord channel will be on the Kickstarter page when it goes live, along with also then a lot of that art will be used in the hero video when it goes live, because we've got that art done. A lot of that art will then be used in the media kits that are provided to all the people that will be promoting and things like that. So if you create, like a piece of art that then can be used in 5 different places, that is a massive benefit to you, your company, your publishing, all that kind of stuff. If you can have a bit of writing that can be used in, if it can be the voiceover for something, the lore for something else, and then used to like be condensed down on the Kickstarter page, that's a winner. Like that's an absolute winner. So that's what I would kind of say in terms of that. Now, he mentioned as well, Michael said, likewise, can you overshare a product by making content while it's work in progress? Now, this is something that Tom and I have discussed a little bit about, and we're trying to work out, because going into our next Kickstarter after Scorched Basin, we've been working on something that I will publicly say is Project Blackthorn. It's the homie and the dude system that we will be releasing.
Getting some code words out there, guys. That's some we're really going into the secrets for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're working on Project Blackthorn in the background, but it's a system that we're working on. We're going to be releasing that with the Kickstarter after Scorched Basin. And what we're talking about is how much of that do we give access to the public for playtesting, because we are going to make it completely free of charge. Our system is going to be like, if you want it digitally, it's going to be free for everyone. We're not going to put any paywalls. If you want a book, obviously we have to print it, so there's a little bit there. But, for digital, we're going to give it away for free, basically. So with that, we're trying to work out how much we give to the audience beforehand to playtest, and who we select to playtest, and all this kind of stuff, to ensure that we're not just putting the product out there before we then go to Kickstarter, which will be, our standard setting with this system alongside it. We're wanting to make sure that we kind of do that right. And so the honest answer is, dude, and I hope I have an answer for you in the future. At the moment, I don't know what the correct answer is.
It's
hard.
evolving. I'll tell you who has done a really good job with it, Michael. There's actually 3 that I would look at that have done a really good job of like cultivating its drops along the way. And it started like within, I think several of them over months and maybe one of them over a year. So DC20, if you look at how he promoted that system, it's just incredible. He started in January, and I think his Kickstarter went live in maybe August or September. MCDM as well for like literally a year before he went live with Draw Steel. And then Kelsey Dion, dude, she's doing exactly what we have said, which she's got a quick start, or I think they call it a like a basic part of Shadow Dark that you can get for free. And she's really done a good job of just sharing it out with the audience. You get a flavor of it, and then if you want more, then there's more. And so if I'd look at Kelsey Dion is Arcane Library, and she's just been,
I mean, it works.
incredible.
The starter pack is literally sat on my shelf because it was for free at Gen Con.
Yeah.
It's literally sat there on my shelf because they were giving it away for free at Gen Con. So it works. It straight up works.
Yeah.
So I'd really look at how they've done it, because they've really been successful in how they've done it. And then the last little thing, and I know we're winding down, is as far as like new product versus existing products. So we're doing Scorched Basin now, but we're already talking about when the handoff is going to be to really moving our attention from Scorched Basin to the next project. And that we're looking at that being sort of in the summer. So we'll have about a 2 or 3 month lead up to the Scorched Basin Kickstarter, where half of the team is going to be working on the next project. And so, and that's just, we're learning how to do this pipeline stuff. And I think it's a work in progress for us to just understand like how much resource can we give to the new project. Because the last thing I'll say is, unlike some of the other Kickstarters out there, what we feel is a real distinguisher for us is that we like to deliver all of the contents for our Kickstarter at the end of the Kickstarter, right? So when the Kickstarter, so if someone has backed, then hopefully they'll know that Homie and the Dude is going to deliver stuff to you within months and not years. Right?
Dude, the Stormlight TTRPG came out. I'm hyped. I'm like, great. And it's like, oh yeah, we're going to give you the stuff in 2026. I was like, oh, great. Fantastic. I'll look forward to that then.
And they're not the only ones, right? There's others that are just like, it's going to take you years to get this book. So that's one thing as well. Anyway.
Yeah, great point.
Definitely. Well, so yeah, I hope that covered a lot of, I mean, I know that we covered a lot of ground as far as things that people listening can do to build that kickstarting audience, that crowdfunding audience, or even just strategies for kind of organizing yourself, connecting to the communities that are out there.
Matt, can I just quickly chime in?
Yeah, go for it, Bodhi.
I would love to just quickly answer one of the questions, one more question in the chat, because it sounded more pertinent. The one from Soharbab. It sounded a little bit like they're in the middle of trying to promote, and I just wanted to give them a little bit of something.
Yeah, please do.
Thanks. They're talking about struggling on IG and saying that, it just wasn't converting the way that they were hoping. What are some sites that we suggest advertising on? I would say consider places like Facebook groups, consider places like Reddit, consider also creating your own Discord and newsletter like we've recommended, and trying to bring as many people to those so that you can activate them when you go live, and really like put into those places. Standard traditional marketing will on IG and places like that will work if you pay them a butt ton of money to do it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you just posting there is not going to work in the way that you are hoping most of the time, as far as we are aware. So I would consider, Facebook groups are a big one, Reddit is a big one, and then definitely consider like Discord servers, making your own server, and other people and other places like that as well.
Awesome. Thanks for catching that. I didn't notice it.
It just sounded like they were in the middle of it. I was like, oh, they're like, I don't want to make, I wanted to give them something.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I hope that covered a lot of ground for folks listening. I know it did for me. Before we close the show out, Tom, Bodhi, I wanted to give the microphone back over to you to share any last words or parting wisdom that you have that maybe we didn't get the opportunity to touch on today. as it pertains to building a crowdfunding audience and kind of building that community. And then, of course, once you're done giving us that, those last parting words, I'd love for you to also let us know a little bit of information about the Scorched Basin, about where folks can join your Discord community, any kind of how to connect with you, where to find you stuff. I'd ask that you do that kind of at this point too, before we close out the show.
Thanks, Matt.
You go first, and then I'll tag you.
I would just say first, thanks for having us. We have been aware of Rising Tide for a long time and have been just really, really thankful that Rising Tide exists in the community. It's an awesome place. I would just say, listen, if you are looking for that next step of content creation that you want to get out to your audience, do something that you're passionate about. It is super rewarding. If you can find other people to do it with you, even more rewarding. And if you can link up with anyone and align your interests, that team aspect has been super fulfilling for us. We are in the middle of a Kickstarter, so I'm going to hand over to Bodhi. We're in the pre-launch phase with our Kickstarter, so I'll hand over to you. You can give a bit of a overview. But thank you from my behalf. Thank you so much for having us. Really, really grateful to be kind of more directly involved with Rising Tide. You guys are awesome.
Hey, thank you guys for being here.
Dude, honestly, like Tom said, our whole thing is, thank you for everything that you guys do. All the people here who are creating, having fun, making this space what it is. We appreciate you. We appreciate Rising Tide. Like, without any of this, what exists in the TTRPG space other than just people separately playing games in their basement? So it's nice that we can all do it together and be part of this community together. So I appreciate everyone here who's listened and taken part. So we have the Scorched Basin coming up, which is a Mad Max / Dune inspired TTRPG setting. Now, it's completely system agnostic, which means that there will be mechanics and things in it, but it can be adapted and interpreted to be run pretty much with every system that is out there. The Scorched Basin is also what we call a plug and play setting. So you can either use the Scorched Basin as the whole setting landscape, or you can plug that setting into your world and have it be something that the players discover in your world that already was there from the start. The Scorched Basin is essentially a meteor crash site that has then developed into this basin where various desert landscapes sprawl across the place. There's ferocious creatures, harsh weather conditions, and if you're unlucky enough to encounter them, nomadic wielders of the frequencies within all things, crazy Mad Max style, like war boy dudes riding around in post-apocalyptic vehicles, causing chaos and racing each other to see who can go the fastest. You have like rich oligarchs who live in the basin wall who are puppeteering other factions and clans. You have warrior women that have a tribe that are just absolute badasses at hand-to-hand combat and will like just destroy anyone. Loads to interact with. We're also going to be providing 3 brand new fantasy languages that will come with typable fonts. There will be some soundtrack that will be provided with the book. We're also going to hopefully be giving you guys a bunch of recipes that are going to be lore accurate to the setting that you can cook for your TTRPG players around the table as you visit the factions and encounter the cultures of the Scorched Basin. And a ton more. We're giving you vehicle mechanics, we're giving you vehicles, we're giving you items, creatures, alchemy system, player options, brand new magic system that's never been seen. It's all freaking in there. It's a good time. Get crazy with your friends. But yeah, it's a good space to have fun. And I can let you guys know that hundreds of player characters have been killed in the playtesting. So we're super excited to get it out there to you guys so you can embody your own Dune / Mad Max inspired TTRPGs.
It's called Scorched Basin. The pre-launch is up right now. So if you are interested in it, just type in Scorched Basin. It should come up on Kickstarter. Really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think Jess posted the Kickstarter page in the chat as well. So for folks who are here live today, it'll be there. And then if you're listening in post live discussion, I'm sure there'll be links as well for you to find in the show notes.
Are you cool for me to drop a link to our Discord in that chat as well, Matt?
Go for it. Yeah, absolutely. I think in the spirit of connecting communities together, this is This is exactly the reason why we're here doing this chat. Of course, to impart wisdom and share insights, but also to connect folks. So please go for it, Bodhi. And awesome. Well, I want to encourage everybody listening to go follow the Scorched Basin and make sure that you keep your ears to the ground for all that good stuff. And while you're at it, also come follow the TTRPG Rising Tide on your social media platform of choice and spread the good word of this community to other creators that you know. The bigger the Rising Tide is, the more we can work with one another to kind of grow the space. I think that's everything for me. I'm not sure, Bodhi, Tom, if you had any last, goodbyes.
Last goodbye is, if you're on this journey to publishing thing, keep grinding, keep going, keep believing in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to. So that's the number one freaking thing. Believe in yourself when you wake up. Thank you so much for having us. You guys are absolutely the best, and appreciate you all.
Yeah, thank you for being here, guys. So I'm Matt at roll_play_chat on all socials, and this has been another RT Talks. Join us live next month for another upcoming event. Stay tuned to hear the time and date for the next conversation. And, with that, I will leave everybody with our usual goodbye. So recall, folks, that a rising tide lifts all boats. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.